Aloha. Well, we're back in the nursery again. I have had numerous requests from viewers to talk more about nursery. Okay, I'll do that. Um, for me, it's something I've done a large part of my life, so I don't really find it the most interesting topic under the sun. But I've discussed things like some of the structures we've talked about, propagating plants and so on and so forth. But the one thought that does come to my mind that I probably haven't discussed very much at all, and that has to do with sales. It really won't do you very much good at all to have a nice nursery if you can't figure out what to do with the plants that are in it or how to get the plants moved. Now, of course, if the nursery you have is strictly for home propagation and use, well, you don't need to worry about it. And I mean, certainly, I have had nurseries like this over the years where pretty much everything would, go into my own gardens and fields and that, or to my friends and neighbors. But in the case of this operation, it's too large, there's too many plants. I mean, there's even a lot of things out here that I don't even want to grow myself, personally. Yet I know other people want them, and so that's why they're in the nursery. And that's the key. The key is you have to, A, have something that somebody really wants. B, figure out who it is that wants what you have and connect them with it. And then, C, you really have to focus on what you're producing as a niche. The niche is so important when you're talking about small nurseries or startup business, because there are huge nursery operations in the United States of America. They do a really, really, really good job. They do it at a lower cost than most of us ever could, okay? Because they've just got things right down to an efficient T. It's a business. And so, if you think you're going to go into business producing pansies, petunias, pepper plants, and tomatoes, well, you might get rid of some, and there's a chance for you, depending, because that can be a niche market, depending on how you approach it. But in general, if you're just using plain old Northrop King seed off the rack, and it's what everybody else has got who's selling to Home Depot, you aren't going to compete, and it's probably not worth the effort. So you have to look for items that people want that are difficult for them to find. That's really one good place to start. How the plants are grown can be a niche. I mean, I know several smaller growers who produce organic bedding plants or organic nursery stock. This is a niche market. There are not too many people who are doing that. And so that's another way to approach it. Raising heirlooms, for instance, having exotic, unusual varieties of stuff that you don't find in the mainstream. This is also really important. But none of it's going to do you any good if you can't get the right product to the right customer. That's the key to everything. And so, presentation on the site has a lot to do with it. But let's break it down into that there are two basic types of nurseries. There are nurseries which are predominantly brick and mortar. That's what's over here behind me. In other words, it's a business on a piece of land. People come in here, they walk around, they pick stuff off the tables, they pay me, and they leave. So this is a brick and mortar business on location. There are nurseries who are internet nurseries, or used to call this mail order nurseries, and pretty much the same thing, except the catalogs are digital these days, and maybe you can order right on your computer instead of fill out that sheet of paper. Nevertheless, principle's pretty much the same. So you're either brick and mortar or you're mail order. You can also be both. Now, if you're brick and mortar, it's going to really help that you're in an area where there's a lot of growth. So if you're in a growth area, you're going to find it very easy to sell plants because people will be developing land. If you're not in a growth area, It is possible to have brick and mortar business, but then you really have to kind of get creative about, well, what's the nature of it, you know? What are you doing? Is it a bonsai specialty nursery? You know, this may work out. I've seen a few in some heavily developed areas because they're unusual. You don't usually find bonsai nurseries, you know. Water plant nurseries, for instance, can work out in heavily developed areas. So those are the two possible ways, with a third, combining the two. Okay. So now if you're in an area where things are heavily developed, then mail order can be your way. That can be the way, is to move things off. Now it has some problems. And in fact, I have just recently faced some of them. Whenever you're having something move off of your site via some carrier, whether it be the post office, UPS, FedEx, and so on, you're going to have lost a certain amount of control over what happens once you load that stuff onto the truck. Okay? Because then it's up to the shipper. And boy, oh boy, believe me, I'm not going to mention any names here, all right, but I have had a lot of stuff lost in transit. That happens. I just had a load of 2,000 plants that went into Ohio that the shipper, who I will not mention, I mean, talk about a bunch of space-age cowboys, okay? These guys must have rolled my cartons end over end over end over end. I mean, they literally defoliated plants completely inside the boxes. I also suspect some of the material got too cold in transit in the hold. You know, the airplanes up there, it's really cold. And so I have a feeling that they hadn't heated the holds. And so I got a big problem they have to deal with right now, having to make the customer happy because of what the carrier did in between. Now, if you're selling on site, or if you're growing in a location and moving to the farmer's market with it, which is another possible way that you can distribute materials. Farmer's markets are a great alternative. You don't really need a store. Just get a booth at the market, set up, and sell your stuff, collect the money, go home. Now, there are issues with that too, because you got to take the plants off the nursery floor, you got to load them in the trucks, you got to take them down, you got to put them on the tables, you know, out in the farmer's market, and then you got to sit there all day long and deal with it. But it can be a good way to get rid of stuff. I've done it. I won't do it again. I'm fed up with farmers markets, but I can certainly see how people can do it and how they can make money with it. And so that's an alternative. My personal philosophy on getting rid of stuff is have them come get it. This is my favorite way. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to move it. All I want to do is grow it and have it there presented properly so people, when they come in, will go, ooh, ah. Now, that takes us to another part of sales, and it's impulse. Nursery, no matter what, is an impulse business. So if you're selling via a website and it's mail order, it's impulse. What's your presentation? How exciting is it? Most people tell me that when I eat a piece of fruit in front of this camera, they gotta have it, okay? I'm not faking. I just feel that way about some of these things, but for sure, how you present something matters. When it comes to a nursery, clean, neat, well organized, well labeled, no bug holes in the plants, no weeds. If the stuff looks great, people are going to want it. Okay. If the stuff looks shaky, go shop somewhere else. So how clean, nice, and neat, well organized, how well you faced your tables in the nursery, how well you keep them full. It's really easy, if you start to have success, to have your tables empty off. And so you really need to keep a constant string of production coming behind so that you always have fresh stuff you can put up on the table. Now, in my case here, since I'm doing most of my sales locally here on the island, then people who may come back repeatedly and do, I will assure them, check back in because I always got something new. And so having variety, having rotation, this really, really helps. I use Craigslist a lot to bring people inside the nursery, and I'll do it again with impulse. There are buzzwords, and so when you put the right buzzword on an ad, you're going to attract people. And if you can attract them with even just one thing, you may end up selling dozens once they arrive. And this is the nature of it. Your presentation, how honest and honorable you seem, has a lot to do with it. The guy looks kind of shaky and you question most of what he has to say, you may not want to buy very much from him. And so know your product line, be assertive, and always attempt to make tie-in sales. You want to try to connect any other products you have. If you sell soils or you sell tools or you sell pots or anything that's connected to what you're selling that you have to offer, you want to do that. If all you sell is plants, like I do here, plants and seeds, then maybe you want to try to, if you show somebody a bromeliad that flowers in purple, you're probably going to want to go ahead and offer them an orchid that flowers in yellow, red, or orange to balance the colors. You need contrast. If you're selling fruit trees, if they're citrus and the customer wants a mandarin orange, well, Owari Satsuma is my favorite, but Owari Satsuma only has a season about December to maybe February. That's it. So having other citrus that would be good at other times of the calendar. Again, another tie-in sale. That's a great citrus, that Owari Satsuma, but maybe you want a clementine because clementine is going to come on later and the fruit will hold longer than it does on Satsuma. I do a lot of my marketing actually via YouTube. People see the YouTube channel, they come looking for me. So it's certainly a good way to get introduced to me because I sit here in front of the camera and I just kind of spill my beans and people go, hey, I like the message, so they drop in. So that's a sales pitch. This video is basically a sales pitch in a manner of speaking. Having business cards, passing them around. They aren't as important as they once were, but still active, still good thing to have business cards that you can give to people. That way they'll remember your number, they'll remember your name. Maybe they give it to a friend. Having a website helps. Currently I have the most beautiful website for this business, but I have hesitated to actually post it online. The main reason behind that is that I'm retired. This business is a retirement project to keep me in extra scratch from my wallet, keep me busy, and it's just something I'd be doing anyway, was growing plants, so I may as well be selling them. If I was to go ahead and open my website up, I know what will happen to me. I will suddenly find that I have a lot more business than I know what to do with. So deciding the size and the scale of the business is definitely a consideration if you're going to try to run a nursery. How big do you want it to grow? This particular spot where I'm at and the business that I'm in has tremendous growth potential. I could probably go 100-fold over what I'm doing at the moment. If I put the website up, for sure, okay? But I don't think I really want to do that. Having the lower level of business, more manageable, not so much work for me, is my goal here. And so I've been real cautious about trying to grow this. I am growing it slowly. I've doubled the size of my nursery tables, and I have more tables yet to come in. We'll be putting up shade houses, and I'm eventually going to start putting up more hoop houses here too to keep some of the crops dry from the rain, and etc., etc. So it's inevitably going to get bigger, but I really don't want to push it. It's growing nicely. It's growing at a good organic rate, and so there's, what's tolerable for you. That's kind of really important. But I guarantee that if you have a good idea and you got the right product and you're in the right place and you're marketing it right, it's going to take off faster than you'll believe. All right, so be prepared, because it can be like grabbing a tiger by the tail once you open up the right idea. So let's take a look out here at some of the stuff that I'm growing and maybe give you some idea of how I'm presenting it. There are so many ways that you can lay out plants in a nursery. Now, I'm kind of working on getting myself some sign tiles for this stuff here. I got to acquire some plastic stakes that stand up higher. But if you look closely, you will see that I have little stakes, at least, in all of my pots that are labeled with what it is that's sitting there. So this helps a lot. When the customer doesn't have to ask you, well, what is this stuff? Okay, they will anyway in my case, because they're going to go, oh, giant lilycoy, never heard of it, what's that? You know, and so on. Or Desert King dragon fruit, never heard of it, what's Desert King dragon fruit, and so on. So I end up answering plenty of questions. I could get to the point where I had tiles with pictures of the produce with descriptions and so on. That is possible to do, depending on how much work you want to go to. Now, in this case, though, what I have done is the first table, everything on it at the moment is labeled at $3 each. That makes it simple. It's also kind of a good sales gimmick, because there's a lot of beautiful stuff here. There's a lot of variety, okay? And when people come in and they look down, they go, oh man, look at all this cool stuff, and it's only $3 a pot. I've seen people empty their wallets, okay? Because they just can't resist. And so what I've done here is, on this side of the table, I have almost entirely fruit trees. Now, there are some fruit vines and there are some fruit cacti over here, but this is all pretty much fruit, all right? And again, quality of the plants, you know, how do the plants look? That's really important. Now, there's some cute little papayas there, you know. I think they are. I think most of my trees and stuff over here look pretty good. Oh, there's some Roselle. A doctor from Florida sent me seeds from his Roselle collection. They're all growing very nicely. So this side of the table is predominantly to be eaten. Over in the other corner of the table, I have herbs. We've got lemongrass and rosemary, and we've got chives and patchouli and oregano and chili peppers and so on. Then we got some vegetables over there. We got sweet potatoes. I also have pigeon peas on that side. And then I've gone to 3.5-inch pot ornamentals over here. And so we've got cane begonias and hibiscus. And over on the other table, everything over there is $6. And again, that makes it easy. People come in, they go, oh, that's all $6 stuff, huh? So they look through it and they pick what they want. I definitely sell more $3 plants than I sell $6 plants. And I do have stuff at times that I sell for more than $6 a pot. Currently I'm running a special on everything at 3 and 6. So if you show up this week, that's what you're going to get. Some of this will go back up to $10 a pot pretty soon. Got a special sale on the ghost chilies on that end over there. That's the only gallon pot in the whole place. You can have them for $4. They aren't moving very well. I want them out of here. Quality and appearance goes a long way towards selling an item. Sometimes people will buy something just because it looks good. They might not even know what it is or anything about it, but it looks good, so they bring one home. That happens. These plants right here, Psychotria viridis, that's one of the shamanic herbs used in the Amazon to make the brew ayahuasca. I do pretty fair business with these plants here, and I think those Psychotria plants are just plain gorgeous. That's what I think. Right now, at $3 a piece, you couldn't find a better chacruna plant anywhere on the web. That's hot stuff. It is also, for me,
one of the buzzwords that will bring people into the nursery. You've got a lot of people here in the island that are interested in ayahuasca, and because of the fact that we can grow these plants really easily here, they're legal, that plant will draw people in here when I advertise it, and most people who buy chacruna will turn around and buy patchouli, or will turn around and buy fruit trees and so on, having varieties of stuff that nobody else has. It's another way. This right over here is yellow dragon fruit, which has now become common on the island. A few years back when I started this project, this was not a common fruiting cactus here. But it is today. It's caught on. Everybody's figured out it's absolutely delicious. But this one right over here is a related dragon fruit, but it's a different species, and it makes an orange fruit. And this guy, very few people have. And so this is an unusual one. And so unusual plants often will sell. These guys right over here are the Desert King dragon fruit. And the batch of seeds that we brought out of Israel and into the Big Island are probably the only Desert King seeds that have been brought in here so far, to the best of my knowledge. I know these sell really well for me because nobody can find them. Vanilla orchids, they seem to elicit a lot of interest in people. There's quite a bit of interest in growing vanilla here in Hawaii. And the orchids are not difficult to grow, although in most of the stores, boy, they get a price for these guys. And I just talked to somebody who bought a $60 vanilla orchid over at Home Depot. And then when I told them, well, mine are $6 a piece, they brought theirs back. They came back here and bought 10 of mine.
So even with all the box stores, the Walmarts and the Home Depots and that around, and the discounters, it is possible for a small nursery to offer a price point that's desirable. Currently I have doing a pretty brisk business over here with my neighbors, mostly because of selection and price point. Sales is what it's all about, and if you don't have a background in sales, I almost suggest that you go work for somebody in a retail nursery for a while and get a feeling for it, because there is a lot of hype, impulse, and there are ways you can present things that people can't resist them. Ideally, if you've done your job right, if you have a nursery and you have clients that come in, if they came in thinking they were going to spend $25, if you didn't send them out of here after having spent $30 with a smile on their face, you must have done something wrong. Really, everybody's probably got an idea when they walk into a store about what they're planning to spend. Your job is to get them to spend a little more than that and get them to think it was their idea to do it. It will be their idea because they're the one pulling the wallet out anyhow, but you have that control as the nurseryman, and unless you see your nursery as commercial and commercially successful, the chances that your nursery is going to continue is doubtful. My attitude towards any venture in a capitalistic society is, if it makes money, it'll survive. And if it makes money for you, you'll survive. If you haven't focused on it making money, you might find yourself with failure on your hands. What's the point behind it? Honestly, we don't do this just out of the kindness of our heart most of the time, unless you're working for a nonprofit or something. So, success. It's got to be a successful idea. You probably have all kinds of great ideas that I haven't even thought of as far as how you can get your stuff out there so people could see it. So, like I say, it's the internet, the mail order thing. It's the farmers markets. This works fine. I get a sign on the road. I don't know how much business I get from the sign. I do get some. Depending on what it says on the sign. When I put up white pineapples for sale, oh man, do I get business from that sign. When I put up plants for sale, every once in a while they come in here for it. The main part of my sign that's important is when someone calls me up on the phone from Craigslist or whatever and says, hey, I want to buy blah blah this and that, where you at? And I can say, well, it's the plant sale sign on South Kopua Road. Can't miss it. It's all about sales. That's the bottom line when it comes to running a nursery. The rest of it, how to build the fixtures, how to grow the plants, well, there's a bit to know there too. That stuff's a lot more boring, actually. I spend most of my time propagating here. That's what I spend most of my time doing. It's probably only about 10 to 20% of my time is actually spent in selling, which is a good thing too, because if I had to do that all day long, which I have, it can be exhausting. But I spend more time growing than I do selling, and it seems to be the balance is about right, because I manage to always keep stock on the tables, so there's something when somebody comes here, so I have something that I can sell. So this video is pretty much about the importance of selling and some of the ins and outs of how you can do that. I guess in the future I could get right on down to the old sales pitch talk and actually show you how Bill sells stuff. One of these days when I have clients around here, I may turn the camera on just so you can watch this process. It's quite magical. I've been doing it for a long time. It takes practice, and I think there are some people who are better at it than others. But it's something you need to learn if you want to run a nursery. Anyway, aloha, thanks for watching. Happy gardening, and you just have a wonderful